So let's get started. I'm here with Mike Harms. He's the creator of ZECpages. Um, you can hear me all right, right?
Sound great?
Okay. So, what was a day in the life of Michael Harms before ZECpages?
So before ZECpages, not too long before, I was working as a barista. I was a coffee shop manager, and I think would this have been 2019? Whenever it happened, Ethereum was starting to pop off, and I ended up deciding I was fed up with work and I wanted to have a better life. And so I sold some Ethereum, have a nest egg. I went to Lambda School, which was the name of what is now Bloom Tech. It was a 9-month coding boot camp program, full time. I went really, really hard. I learned how to build full stack applications, and the rest is history. Now I'm a software developer. Part of my time at Lambda School was building ZECpages. That was my first foray into the cloud and any kind of blockchain application. And that was, I think, at the tail end of boot camp. I was building stuff every day, new stuff that sometimes stunk, sometimes didn't, but I was just trying to get in the reps,
Okay.
have a system where I wrote code every day and learn from my infinite mistakes.
Cool, cool. I mean, that's what we're all trying to do. Um, so how did you come up with the idea for ZECpages, one? And two, did it start off as like a school project or just sort of I'm having fun in my spare time and this is what I want to do.
I think this was almost entirely just a spare time initiative thing. It was definitely not for any kind of school thing. It was right after I did my first cloud-based stuff. I used some AWS services, like some managed services like Elastic Beanstalk and maybe RDS, like super managed services. And I learned pretty quickly that that was not the cost-effective way to do things, nor did it give you much control over how things worked. And I started to get my head around how, how to work with AWS. And this was just an extension of that. I was messing around with Zec on my laptop, and I realized I could do a lot of this cool stuff up in the cloud. The inspiration for it, I need to cite the those who came before me. There was an application called Zboard, which was
Okay.
very similar. It had a convention for how a Zcash memo should look when you send it to Zboard, and based on what you sent, it would create a post. I think you had to tag your username with U colon and then the username string, and you could maybe tag a category as well, just with special string IDs at the start of your post. But that was really it. That site went down. I don't remember why. And so I thought, oh, I could build that. I think that's pretty cool. And so I made ZECpages. ZECpages originally was just a directory, right? It wasn't a board. So I say that Zboard was the inspiration. Zboard was the inspiration for the part of ZECpages that gets used. But originally, ZECpages was a place where you could post a Zcash address along with some of your information and hopefully socialize with like-minded Zcashers. I'm not sure if that side of it took off too much. I think I don't know, on the internet when you can share a crypto address, it almost immediately tends toward panhandling, begging, donations, people seeking donations. So that side of it was not super hot. And the idea that I realized I could use child processes, do Zcash stuff, and turn it into this Zboard application that I thought was cool back in the day is really what made ZECpages into what it is now.
Okay. So what was the initial development process like?
That's a good question. It almost never changed. It was just it was quick and dirty, additive. Can I prove to myself I can do it? At
Okay.
no point did I sit back and say, I'm going to clean this up and make this maintainable. And that's very much a problem at this point. Someone needs to go back and do that someday. But 100% additive, here's a new feature idea, throw it in. If it sticks, I'll work on it more. If it doesn't, I'll just forget I ever did it. So it's just throwing more features in the hole and essentially no refactoring. Um, a lot of user feedback, right? When people were excited, people would say, "Oh, it'd be cool if I could do X." And then I would try to do a real quick turnaround because people like that. People like to feel heard. So someone would say, "Can I do this?" And I'd say, "Cool idea." And then it would be on the website. So I think that's really where the traction came from was people feeling heard in their ideas. It felt like we were all, collaboratively playing the game together.
Yeah, you were super responsive.
That's right.
Excuse me. Okay, so in the initial tech, did it run on a full node or using a light wallet?
For a very short time, it was a full node running on a laptop right next to my computer. It was just a laptop that was partly open on the bottom of a server stack that was just running Zcash and listening for transactions. Um, that didn't last very long because, like, I'm going to either close it accidentally or my internet's going to go down. And I got better at cloud stuff. So I turned it into a light node in AWS because it would be very cost prohibitive. At the time, it was cost prohibitive to run a full node in AWS, and now it's very cost prohibitive to run a full Zcash node in AWS. I'm not interested.
That's a very polite way of putting it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's yeah, that's a pretty brutal process. Um, so did you have like a big release day or was it just released, people found out about it and immediately they just sort of gravitated and loved it because you sort of within the crypto world became like an overnight celebrity for a little while.
I think it's
Um,
it's fair to say, I guess. Um, big release day? I don't think so. Unless you remember something, I don't believe so. I think I made it. Did a lot of talking. There was a team actually. It's funny how it feels like it's been forever. There was a team, a guy named Sean and the Twitter user Bitcoin Stripper would write a short newsletter that they would send to I think every address on ZECpages, which is pretty
wow.
cool, right? That was pretty exciting for a while. That was probably a big part of things too, in terms of making people feel like there was adoption and making people feel excited to share their addresses there. So that was a big part of it. I forget what kind of launch days or like events might have happened around that.
I don't particularly remember. By the time I had like started talking to people in crypto, um, ZECpages was all the rage.
Oh, okay.
Um, I started off having no idea how to code or anything. Eventually, I found myself skipping from Robinhood to Coinbase to KuCoin, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna figure out how this crypto stuff actually works. And I was really interested in Zcash. And right around the time of the Ycash fork, I wanted to buy some Zcash so I could have one Zcash and one Ycash, which
Nice.
it nowadays turned out to, well, one, I didn't buy that Zcash before the fork,
Oh,
and
really?
two, yeah, really, and two, both coins have sort of just taken a complete dump. But
Yeah, I should have kept it at one.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, let's see, what's my next question here? Okay, so now that things have mellowed out, do you plan on doing like any future updates with ZECpages or a future iteration of something similar?
Um, I don't know. In a lot of ways, the total lack of clean engineering effort that I put into ZECpages, I've always sort of thought of it just as an example to everyone of this like blockchain is your base data store. Your server database is like a caching layer where you can decide which blockchain data is served to the application, and then your application sits on top. Um, and the idea that the actual blockchain transaction is like this private API to touch to it is just supposed to be a proof of concept of that, which is very similar to any application that runs on like op returns, et cetera, et cetera. It's just that Zcash's memo field is bigger, so you have
Yep.
a little more room for data. And of course, it's very exciting that it's so private. So ultimately, I always sort of thought of ZECpages as this proof of concept, this example project, right? It feels like a project that any student could build in a week or two, right? And that's a big reason also why I didn't worry too much about the UI, UX, the anything. It's supposed to feel accessible and to the amateur because it's not super complex. It's just an example of one simple implementation and it's open sourced. And I don't think it's too hard to figure out how things are going on. You just don't, who cares about the React side of things? Anyone could build that.
It's like a you can do this statement to the world then.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's just a tutorial.
Yeah, that's really cool. And
Well, thanks.
as I'm sure you're probably proud of it, you should be.
I'm pretty
It's,
proud of ZECpages. It definitely was a bigger deal than I expected it to be.
I mean, as far as I'm aware, it is the first social media network to run on any blockchain and the only real successful D app to run on Zcash.
I think that's true about Zcash. I think there were some social networking Ethereum apps. I remember an old one called Peepeth from
I
back in the
thought those
day,
came
which was
after.
maybe, I don't know. I feel like that was before. But in any case, I'm sure I wasn't the only person thinking it, but it's definitely it was exciting to be doing something so fresh and new.
Well, I mean, you took a really far out idea and turned it into something tangible that hopefully inspires a generation of people.
Oh, well, thanks, Jake.
You should be proud.
Thanks.
Okay, so what other projects aside from ZECpages are you working on or have you been working on in the future? Or will
Um,
you be working on? Sorry.
no, it's all good. Zcash wise, I've worked on a few things with Zcash that I've sort of lost passion for midway through the project. One thing that I think could be cool is like a Zcash website paywall where you throttle content and respond with like push notifications or WebSockets or something really sexy and quick to a payment and deliver the content. So it's some kind of microtransaction solution that uses Zcash. I think that could be cool. I remember the Pay with Zcash guy wanted that, and I started building it. And I couldn't put it together. It needed to be like WordPress. I'd never worked with WordPress. I couldn't make it happen. I think I could maybe circle back on that and make something happen now. It's the GPT era, so I can do a lot more than I used to be able to. Um, then I had an idea to make a burn Zcash to vote application. Like you could post a poll and users could only vote by burning Zcash to burn addresses. And I ended up getting blocked on how to generate valid, provably burn addresses in Zcash, and I wanted them to be distinct, right? So you could count the tally based on the funds received. There's probably a smart way to do that. I'm not the cryptographer. I don't know how to do it.
So are you looking to do it with shielded addresses specifically, or would you be open to using transparent addresses on that
So
one?
this was the app I built was transparent because I thought it'd be cool to see the funds. But you could definitely do it with view keys and memos too. I don't know the right way. And again, I totally like worked on that for like a day. And I think at the time I was learning Ruby on Rails. So it was like a
Okay.
Ruby on Rails scaffold where I was doing this and I was just putting together the model view controller thing. So I definitely didn't stick with that, but I thought it was a pretty neat idea in general. The idea that it's coin weighted voting, but here's the twist, you lose your coins you vote with. That's kind of
That would be
wild.
really sweet.
It would be sweet.
Um,
I don't see a lot of people embracing it. People don't like to lose their coins.
no, but you do see people with like meme coins, which I know it's an entirely different part of the industry. But you do see people going nuts. There's a billion sheep getting burned. I don't know, every time my phone goes off with a notification on it.
Oh, wow.
If you have CoinGecko on your phone, you probably hear about it too.
Oh, I don't, but that's interesting to know.
Yeah. But yeah, with T addresses, it's actually totally possible. I'm not the expert on it, but I've been to a few sites where they walk you through the process of generating a pub key from an invalid private key, and then you just convert that pub key into a T address.
Okay.
Um, they've been doing it on Bitcoin, I want to say for like 10 years now.
Okay. Very cool.
Um, So it's completely unspendable because it's impossible to sign any coins locked to it with the private key because there is no valid private key.
Okay. And how would you prove that to a user? Would you have to share the invalid private key so they can see it goes to this and it's an invalid private key?
That would be what I would do. I would personally like maybe even take a video of the creation of the private key
Sure.
just so they can see this is everything I did. This is exactly what it is. Here's the private key. It's not going to work. Go ahead, take it, spend the coins. It
Right.
won't work.
Yeah.
Um,
Cool. That'd definitely be cool to know. Ultimately, I think it's just a cool experiment. Like I feel like some,
Absolutely.
but I also might feel guilty, right? What if someone comes along and burns some coins and then regrets it, right? But it's just kind of a cool experiment.
Well, I mean, you always have the what if I feel guilty thing, but I mean, as developers, we typically lose the most crypto screwing around with it, you know, using it as a toy instead of money.
I suppose that's true.
I mean, look at the first Bitcoin faucet. Gavin Andreessen bought like $10,000 worth of Bitcoin and was giving out 5 Bitcoin a click to
Yikes.
anybody who wanted Bitcoin.
Yeah, yeah.
That- That's what $330,000 as we speak right
Yeah,
now.
that's absurd.
Okay. Then you've also been working on some AI generated authorship.
That's right.
Um, you want to tell me a little bit about that, or you want to
Sure,
keep that
yeah.
kind of out of the interview?
No, no. I have an Etsy store where I allow people to buy customized books and illustrated children's books. They both just work off the GPT API, but I have a lot of fun with it. And you can specify simple personalization details like my child's name is John. He likes trucks. He wants to be an astronaut. His favorite food is peanut butter and jelly. And his favorite animal is an elephant, right? And it takes those elements and it generates a picture book about John the elephant, who's going to be an astronaut, his peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. They all end with the animal going to sleep, which is a big one for any parents. They love when the story ends with sleep. So that's a key instruction. Um, and then I also have I do long form content. You supply, and Tim, this is more like a prank, like a gag gift. Like let's say you have a friend named, pick a name. His name is Bob, and he lives in an apartment that he never leaves, and he likes to cook weird food combinations, right? You could
All right.
describe that to the AI and say, write me a 300-page book about this guy and give it just a brief explanation. Then you have a gag gift. You get a printed book. It's 300 pages long that the AI just dumped out. It's not especially high quality. It has some weird behaviors regarding context, but it's pretty cool, and I have a lot of fun doing it.
Okay, so it would be like a good gift to get for like a brother or a friend, like say for Christmas or their birthday, where they're not going to take it personal and they're going to laugh about the book.
No, for sure. Like, my brother hates AI in
Okay.
general, right? A
All
funny
right.
book would be like give him an AI book called like Mike's brother who hates AI. And it's just a story 300 pages long about who this guy is, how much he hates AI, why he hates AI, and the various conflicts and adventures he gets into. Um, I, the funniest book I made, I think, was a nonfiction book about how AI literature is destroying the quality of printed media. And of course, it's written entirely by AI. It's very meta. I have a lot of fun with it. I don't like super like the children's books I think are cute. The long form literature I think is hilarious, but I don't like think they're amazing products or anything, but I have a lot of fun making them.
I imagine the GPT era is brand new and you're already using this technology to make cool, unique stuff.
It's pretty exciting, yeah.
I mean, you're always on the bleeding edge, I guess.
Oh, I try to be.
Okay. Finally, so what advice would you give for aspiring developers, not necessarily crypto developers, just people who are not in tech and thinking about getting into it?
Um, Start, be okay with not being good at it at first, write code every day, right? It doesn't have to be good. It can be like coding problems, like exercises, or you can say, I'm going to build a project. And you go with your idea, and maybe you decide your project stinks and you move on. That's great. That's a day well spent because you came up with a design, you started working on it, you thought through the problems, and you always do it better the next time. So many people think that it's true that you do a lot of programming up here and like thinking and premeditating, right? But you learn so much from going through an actual implementation. And even if you don't end up using it, you'll learn a ton just by writing some code and thinking about how you do it better next time. Because you just can't, there are things you can't think about up front because, you know, you don't run into those problems and you didn't think about them. So you just got to do it. Just write code every single day. Never feel like you're good or you're done learning or anything like that. You always have something new to learn. Just keep going.
Absolutely. I love it. Okay. And do you have any advice for developers looking to get into blockchain specifically?
Um,
Or,
I feel like Groucho Marx has this bit about how he wouldn't want to be in a club that would have him as a member. Right? That's cute,
okay.
right? It's funny, whatever. What's funny with blockchain is you have all these clubs of various sizes based on
Yes.
the coins, right? You look at Ycash, it's a small coin. If you want to write code for Ycash, you will get boosted by the community who will be excited to have some mind share and something new to look at. You look at Zcash, it's a small coin, and I was a fledgling developer. And I found a foothold simply by right of filling a gap in a very small community. So what's really good about blockchain is you have a million little markets in this
Yep.
niche. And each one you might fit with. Maybe you find one that you fit with personality wise, and then you find one that's, you know, an appropriate size where you think you can flourish and you're all set to go. The other good piece of news is people love you. Like the community is waiting for the
Yes.
coin to do something cool. The community is like, wow, I really hope my coin does something cool. This is coming, this is coming, this is coming. If you jump in and you actually deliver something the coin can do, right? Some new functionality, some new reason to be excited about it, people will love you because they're all just waiting. They're waiting for someone else to deliver value via the coin. And that's what you're doing. So you can be very popular and gain profile and experience and have a ton of friendly testers who will help you improve your product. Just pick a crypto where you fit with the ethos and the personalities. And if you pick a small enough one, you might rise to the top.
Man, I wish.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
yeah, no, I totally get what you were saying. I mean, you fell in with Zcash, that's where you found your community, and Ycash was where I found mine, as much as I may regret it now.
yeah.
Um, I mean, before I knew even a lick of code, I wrote an article on how to mine Ycash, and
Yeah.
it was, I think you read it, and you actually got a payout for it. It was like,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, but when I wrote it, I had probably 100 people contacting me on Twitter that night wanting to mine Ycash, wanting to get my little bonus payout. I think it was like 10 yak. It was something ridiculously small, but anybody who sent me a screenshot of themselves mining
That's right. I do
was
remember
getting
this
a
now.
bonus.
Yeah.
And for me, it was really simple. So the main pool mining Ycash at that time had dissipated, or they were sunsetting. Um, And my goal was to get more people mining, not on this pool, so we didn't have a chain stoppage.
Right.
And as soon as I wrote it, and I did the little 50-cent giveaway, all these people start blowing me up, and they love me for my contributions to Ycash. And it's like, dude, I didn't even do that much.
You're on a
But
team now.
and that's what eventually it would evolve into. And Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, let's see. Anything else? That's my list of questions and everything.
that's fair. Um,
Okay.
yeah. What about you? What advice do you give fledgling developers, Jake?
Don't do what I did and don't skip around between four different programming languages at the start. It's a horrible idea.
Yeah,
It does make it easier later on to pick up different languages. Um, like on a standard day, I code in Python, Julia, and JavaScript all in the same day. Occasionally there's Rust in there too. Um, on my happiest days, it's only Rust and Julia, but that almost never happens. Um, learn databases. That I'd say learn one programming language and learn how to set up a database. At that point, you've got everything you need to know except for how to deploy it on a live server, which you can read through a 90-minute guide on that.
that's right.
Okay. Oh, one more, and I'll cut this from the video if you don't want to answer it or you don't want it revealed.
Sure,
So you recently welcomed your first child into the world.
that's right.
What advice would you give to new or old developers who are looking to balance being up coding at 2 in the morning and at the same time feeding a newborn at 2 in the morning?
Um, I'm not sure if that's something I can be qualified to answer. I usually don't get up at 2 in the morning. My wife takes
Okay.
care of that. So my advice is you need to have a very wonderful helpmeet, right? Just like they used
Yes,
to say in the Garden of Eden, man. That's how we do it.
that's awesome. That's awesome. And congrats. And yeah, I think that's it for today.
Right on.
Hopefully the Zoom gods make this one work.
Yes.
All right. Well, have
Very
a good
nice,
one,
man.
Mike.
Well, thank you, Jake. Good to see you, man. Peace.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks.
All right.